Hey, what's up everybody? It's Mike B with Bombero Bus, and today I have the day off. Oh, but it is gonna be chock full of adventure. Gonna be working on Jimi Hendrix 65 bug. So let's take a look back here. The engine has been running very well, but there's a problem, and I think it's at the main seal. And that's just too much. That's more than your normal marking your territory that these air-cooled VWs do. And that is not while the car is running, but when I park it and the oil is hot, I get a pretty good rain of oil there. So it's too much. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna be at the main seal area, and that means that the engine is going to need to be dropped. So let me start getting my things together for that, and we'll see what we got going on. The battery has been disconnected underneath the seat. That's always a good idea. Here on your alternator, you're going to have a couple of connections. This is going to come from your starter underneath the car, so that's disconnected. And these wires that come and go to your ignition coil, they're disconnected. I went ahead and pulled the spark plug wires out and away from there because I'm going to be pulling these carburetors off at the manifolds. And the fuel line has been disconnected from the fuel pump. So, you know, those are preparations that you'll have to make on almost any of these engines. You hear people say, oh, it's a breeze, it's just 4 bolts and it's out. That's true, but there's a couple of things you got to do beforehand. So I'm going to keep chipping away at those, and we'll get back when we're closer to dropping this engine. I went ahead and took this rear tin apron out that goes here because I'm going to pull the exhaust off. I have a pretty low hanging exhaust. It was given to me, and that's where it lands. So on this car, it's easier to just have the exhaust out of the way when I go to drop that engine. Another thing is, I just wanted you to see how comical this gets. This is what will be used to drop back there and get onto that nut to pull this manifold off. So like I said, if you have a single carb, you probably don't have to do that. Or if you have a particular manifold that doesn't go beyond this edge here. And I've just learned it's easier for me to take these dual carbs off before I put this engine in or out. So the exhaust is out, this rear apron is out, and the only thing left to do is to get this throttle cable out. And if you don't know, there's a throttle cable tube on the other side back here that will have to be dealt with as the engine comes out. And you know, I should say, if you have a stock motor, it's not this difficult. That's the balance of things. If you want to improve your performance by putting dual carbs or extra things on your car, what you gain in performance, you will probably lose in ease of engine removal, for lack of a better term. I'd like to go under the car and show you what prompted all of this. You can see, I mean, there's the normal, what you see underneath these air-cooled VWs, but when you get up here to the front nut where the engine and the transmission connect, it's clear to see that that's where my leak is coming from. So what happens is, as the car runs, not too bad, but as I stop and park, boom, I get a lot heavy drip under there, way too much more than what's normal. So you can see it starting to soak this area up here, and that's just too much. So the only way to get in there is to pull the engine. There's the starter. You can see some splashing up there. It's obviously coming from where the transmission and the engine meet. And one of the things that's in there is the main seal. So we're gonna do the only thing we can to get to that area, and that's pull this engine. All right, the engine's out. Took me a couple of hours because of everything you have to do with the dual carb and the manifolds coming off. It looks like the problem we have back there is going to be gear oil. Tell that's 99% sure gear oil. And although I did put a brand new throwout bearing on here, that main shaft seal that's back there is the one that came with this car, so I probably should have replaced it when I had the engine out the first time. So it's looking like all that underneath the car is going to be gear oil. Okay, so even though I think that the input shaft, the seal that's back there is leaking gear oil into the bell housing, that doesn't mean that this engine, since it's out, isn't going to get what it deserves. And what it deserves is the new flywheel and clutch disc. So I'm going to pull this pressure plate off and let's take a look back there and see what's going on. Okay, the pressure plate's off and it looks pretty good. So does the clutch disc. You would expect if you had a really bad rear main seal leak that you'd get oil all over this clutch disc, and that's why they start slipping after that happens. But we got a new one of these to put on too, and if you can see that play there in the spline. The new one doesn't have any of that play. It's a sprung one just like this, but I've already pulled it out of the box and there's no play there, so that'll be nice. But so far, not seeing too many signs of just a horrible rear main seal leak, but gotta get the flywheel off to know for sure. Okay, ready to get the flywheel off, and all I can say is if you don't have one of these, you need to get one or have a buddy with one, which is the case for me. My buddy has one of these torque multipliers. That's how I get this flywheel gland nut off of there. So I've already done most of the work, but as you can see, man, whew, you don't need the breaker bar. That's what I'm going to do, pull this flywheel off, and getting pretty excited about what we're going to see back there. Okay, flywheel's off, and there you go. It's not terrible, but I'm going to go ahead and change that out too. So the normal leaking that you see on these Volkswagens and like the spotting and marking their territory can come from stuff like that. That's not too terrible, but when you have a leak like I did, you got to look into it, and I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be the source of what I've been collecting underneath my car. But while we got it out, we'll go ahead and pull that seal out and get a new one in. All right, flywheel's off, rear main seal is out. Everything looks good in there. It really wasn't too bad. The little back hole drain is open, so you know, the cam plug wasn't leaking. None of these galleys were leaking. I think that might have been acceptable and just been chalked up to the marking the territory that these cars do. But I'll show you. I went ahead and pulled. You're supposed to have 3 of these shims to set your in play on your crank. So 2 of these are okay, but one of them is horrible. Look at that. It's bent, and it'll do the popping. Well, I can't hold the phone and show you, but see how bent it is? No good. So I'm going to take the measurement of these 3, keep my thickness in place set, because I have some new shims right there. Won't go too into detail about that. A couple of videos out there on it, but I'm gonna get my shims thickness set before I put the new main seal back on there. Okay, I've got my new shims in there. As you can see, they're nice and oiled up. I put the flywheel back on without the main seal and checked the in play, and I've got 6,000 as close as I can get it with the particular set of shims that I have. So, you know, it should be 3 to 5,000s, but I got 6, and it still turned over well. So we're gonna roll with that. before I put this flywheel in, I'm going to put this new flywheel O-ring. It goes in there. There's a groove inside of it. So I'm going to oil this up and get it put inside there, and then we'll get the main seal put on the back of the engine. So inside there are the 3 shims. You want to put those in before you get your main seal on. And like I said, I've already had the flywheel on without this main seal, and I got 6 thousandths play. So the shims are in. We're going to get the main seal on. Again, same buddy who lent me that torque tool has one of these main seal pressing tools. So I'm going to put it on there. We're going to tighten this up. From what I've seen and what's worked for me is just a hair recessed. So that's what I'm going to go with. All this is oiled up very well on the outside and on the inside. I like this press tool. You can use the mallet and tap it in there if you want, but you won't make me believe that you've got it perfectly level all the way around. Okay, that's where ours have always been. And the good thing about that tool, it's got it nice and even all the way around. So that's it. Main seal is in and it's shimmed. Okay, new flywheel is on there, and this is just due diligence. Pulling your engine. Sure, it's kind of easy, but it's not fun. So when you do, you want to take every advantage you can to replace what you need. This, I'm pretty sure, is the original gland nut from 1965. Look at that washer, lock washer flattened out, and they're not looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this new one in. Nice crispy threads. Look at the spring on that lock washer there, and everything in there is really deep and grooved out. So we're going to put this one on. Look at that. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of red Loctite on there and torque it down to, you do what you want. Well, I'm gonna torque this down to about 250. That's what we've done on our cars and buses, and we haven't had one fly off yet. Put a little bit of red Loctite on there. Okay, this is the benefit of the torque multiplier. Probably don't even need this flywheel lock, but put it on there anyway. I've got this set to 28 foot-pounds. This is going to multiply it to 250 at that gland nut, and that's what we're going to roll with. So I just want to show you. Okay, flywheel's on. The 3 shims are back there. We've got our in place set. There's an O-ring for the flywheel, brand new back there also, brand new gland nut, and we've packed it with some grease now. I'm going to take this opportunity to get a new clutch disc on there, and look at that one. It's sprung 12 volt, no shake there. This one was working great, no complaints, but hey, while I'm here, let's go ahead and replace that and just have this as a spare. Okay, clutch disc is on. We got this clutch disc alignment tool. Ours is just a little plastic one, but that's fine. Okay, pressure plate's back on. We've got the bolts torqued down. You know the star pattern. Started at 10 and then made my way around. I never want to tell you what the torque settings are, but the numbers we read are 18, so those are torqued to 18, and this is lined up good, so we can get that out now. We've already been around to the front and turned it to make sure it still turns and it's not locked up. All right, next day, and got the throwout bearing off. I've got a first good look at the input shaft seal, and there it is. That is gear oil leaking out of there, so we're gonna have to pull this input shaft seal out and get a new one in. Okay, main shaft seal is out, so you're gonna tear them up getting them out of there. And what you can see here is, well, I'll tell you, there's a special tool for this, and it's a hook that comes in from the inside and hammers into it and pulls it out. A couple of videos on that, pretty easy to do. But when you don't have that, you can use a screwdriver, and you come in from this way and be very careful. You can drive it in there and pry this out, but you have to be careful that you're not getting into the meat of this soft magnesium. Okay, so here's the new one, and I'm gonna put some oil on the inside here that touches the input shaft. I'm gonna put a little bit of Permatex around the outside of this. I've been told that's not necessary, but that it doesn't hurt. So, considering the shape of what I just saw, I'm gonna put a light coat around it. Okay, the new one is in. You know, you want to clean out this surface area on the inside and here before you put this one on, but it generally slides almost all the way in, and then just before it seats, it could get a little tough on you, and you just walk it in with one of these, going around, giving it even taps until it gets seated. Well, there's the engine back in, and I didn't show a video of that because it would have just been a time lapse of, you know, me doing that. So I'm gonna take it for a drive, get it nice and hot, come back and shove some cardboard under there and see what kind of leaks we do or do not have. Okay, pretty excited about pulling this piece of cardboard out from under Jimi Hendrix. I just took it on a really good run. We did 70 and cruised at 65 for about a 20-mile trip. Got it nice and hot. So let's do the reveal. I love it. So to me, this is what you call VW just marking its territory. 1, 2, you can see the size of my fingernail there. 3 little dots, and that's after a long time of sitting under there. So I'd say that we have fixed the big issue. And I think I know where these spots are coming from. You look under here, the gasket where my alternator stand sits on top of the case, it sweats a little bit of oil after a long amount of time. And even though this is clean now from where I just did the work on it, you can tell eventually it makes its way down there. And even though it takes a while, boom, it puts some marks on the driveway. If you had one, we don't have one. Well, there's a little piece of one right there. But yeah, I think that I'm gonna call this a win and say that that input shaft seal was the culprit. No longer a worry. Got a nice new main seal, rear main in there. And you know, I've looked under the car and it seems to be holding up pretty clean. They all sweat a little bit of oil from the tremendous amount of horsepower that they have. But as far as just obnoxious leaks that are, you know, detrimental to the car, you can't have those. So, you know, it's a constant monitoring of this when you have one of these. And right now I feel like I'm sitting in a good spot. So like I said, I'm gonna call it a win. And if this video helped you out, feel free to like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, leave a comment and let me know what's up. But either way, thanks for hanging out with Bombero Bus, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.